Leeds United are closing in on the ultimate goal of the season, and that is to get promoted, and that means preparing for that. So there is some summer planning for new signings completely underway and putting the club in the right direction for next season. But there are also conversations around keeping what we have now, keeping the cream of the crop as we continue that rise to the top to see how we do in the next vat of cream, I suppose, because Leeds United are currently preparing for contract talks to take place either now or in the summer. Now, I'm going to cover all of that in this video, but if you enjoyed the video, pop a like on it, subscribe, and I've got a pretty big announcement for a thing I've got coming up at the end of this video, so stick around. It's genuinely something I'm very excited for. So, as we all know, newer contracts do help to give football clubs power. This is not even a question mark. If you have, let's use Junior Firpo as an example, 4 months left on your contract, it's going to be quite hard to retain that player because you don't just get to say, no, we've got as long as we like. You've got 4 months to persuade that player to sign a new contract with you and stick around, rather than another club being able to go, look, we can offer you this, come here instead. The door is wide open for other clubs to walk on through. A longer duration basically makes it easier to hold onto your players for longer. You're less likely to be forced to sell early, as was the case that happened with, let's think of an example. Calvin Phillips was running relatively low on his contract. If you're looking at it, Dan James, as another example, has a year and a bit on his contract, is going to be less easy to hold on to than someone like a Willie Gnonto, who has 3 years on his. It's just natural. It's the way that things are, and players do also benefit, because let's not lie to ourselves, players sign new contracts so they can get into new pay structures, and specifically the player that was discussed in an article that I read earlier today was Pascal Struijk. A little bit of detail on Pascal Struijk. We know that he's grown as a player in his most recent contract, which has 2 years remaining on it, and it's easy to see why he's a player that we're trying to protect the value of. We signed him when he was a teenager, and he's just gradually worked his way up. He's come through and become a very, very important part of this club. His latest extension was in the relegation season. Specifically, it was the 21st of December 2022, so about 6 months before we went down. But at that point, he was proving himself to be a pretty damn capable squad player, and in all likelihood, come to think of it, he likely had one of those loan clauses in his deal, because those were things that we were doing at that point. But he didn't leave, and his role at the club has grown and grown and grown ever since. Him taking that more sort of fundamentally important job, being one of the club's captains, and for a significant point last season, he was the club captain because Ethan Ampadu was out. Wait, that was earlier this season. Never mind. But he's really, really proving himself as someone that can captain the squad, captain the group, and as we've seen in the last 2 matches, the existing leadership structure is clearly very, very good, because it means that no matter what is happening, we are able to keep that momentum going and fight until the last minute of a match. We're not losing in stupid ways anymore. We're not even losing in normal ways anymore. We're able to fight our way back into those games. He's definitely earned it on his side, and he will very probably get some form of pay rise because he's very clearly a key member of the squad now, and it additionally protects his value for the foreseeable future. It's going to be significantly harder to steal Pascal Struijk from us when he's got a contract that runs until 2030. We can just say, no, you've got a contract here, you're not going to leave. But whilst Pascal Struijk is a very, very important player and a player that we'll want to keep around, there are some other pretty big priorities that I'm going to look at throughout the second half of this video, including some contracts that are ending this summer. I discussed Junior Firpo earlier. I discussed Junior Firpo earlier on purpose because his contract ends in 4 months' time. He is already in a situation where foreign clubs are able to just have a chat with him and say, would you fancy a move over to us? You can't do it domestically, but the likes of Real Betis, I heard something about Real Sociedad having an interest, are just able to reach out to him and have that conversation because we've not yet secured him on a new deal. This is one of those where I think it would be absolutely ideal for us to do so, even if just for a year of extension, because at the very least he's going to be reasonably good squad depth in the Premier League, and even better, if he proves that this new version of Junior Firpo can transplant over into the Premiership, we're going to look really, really good. There is one player that I'm a little bit more on the fence about, though, and that is Sam Byram. Whilst he can play on the right and on the left and at centre-back, at the moment he's already sort of depth option, and there's a big question mark around whether you re-sign him or whether that's a case of, well, you're a depth option now, what are you going to be next time out? But it's not just players that only have like less than 6 months on their contract, which I forgot Josh Giavogi, but I think we're all reasonably agreed that Josh Giavogi is not likely to be sticking around after his contract. But we do have a bunch of players that also have 1 year left. That includes Carl Darlow, who, I'll be honest, I don't think we renew because he's not fantastic. That's Alex Cairns. Again, not sure we get a renewal there, purely because he's one of the backup players that you keep around for sort of squad quota stuff. So there's like those are a dime a dozen. But there are 3 currently or previously key players that will be running out of contract in 16 months or so. Patrick Bamford is one of them. Everyone has their opinions on Bamford, and I personally think he'll be leaving in the summer, so that one won't need renewing. He'll just need replacing when it comes to the incoming transfer business. You've also got, this one has, as far as I've been able to tell, completely slipped under the radar, Illan Meslier, who's been here since 2019, I want to say, and has a contract that currently expires in 2026. That's going to be another question mark around, do we sell him this summer because he'll still have some value? Do we let him leave on a free at the end of his contract? Do we renew that contract? All very, very good and big questions, because I don't think he renews his contract if he's not going to get those minutes. That's one that feels like a no. But there's also a big old conversation that I've seen around Dan James. Dan James initially signed for Leeds United in August of 2021. I think it was a deadline day kind of move, because that looks like the kind of timing. Expires in 2026. He got the longest contract you could feasibly get at that point before Chelsea learned how to break the contract system, and he's not renewed it since. I think those renewal conversations are going to have to happen relatively soon, or we will be in big danger when it comes to next January. Because if Dan James doesn't have a new contract, if he sees an opportunity to move somewhere, there are going to be Premier League clubs that have an interest, because he's proven himself to be a very, very capable footballer. But all of this, with various contracts expiring over the next year or two, has me thinking, is there a rebuild coming? We've got a bunch of players that we don't know if we'll make it in the Premier League. Patrick Bamford, I personally don't think that he has the fitness levels to do it in the Premier League anymore. Byram might be out. Firpo might be out. Cairns and Darlow will very probably be gone. Max Voba has the same length of contract as Pascal Struijk. The same applies for Piru, Gruev, Ampadu, Aronson. That's a lot of contracts that are running out in the next 2 years. So the question around rebuild is a very, very big one. And whilst I don't think a total rebuild is coming, I think we're going to see a sort of phasing out in the next 2 years, where some of those players that if we don't think they'll make it at a Premier League level, we just let those contracts quietly slide away. And the other ones, we will do absolutely everything we can to get to stay on. I think Dan James, at the very least, will be a decent bench player in the Premier League. That's why I think he's going to be key to some contract talks. Pascal Struijk, I think, is going to be a long-term leadership option for us. But the entire situation is fairly complicated, and we need to put ourselves in the best position possible for it. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I have an announcement to do. So, something that I have been working on for the last few months in the background, very quietly, that some people will know of.
I'm in.
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 They're all in. Are you?